Hey, everybody. I would love to start having discussions with you online that are kind of informal, a little more casual discussion, but open about something that is really needed in this world. You may have noticed this if you've been feeling tense, anxious, if the news or watching information about something going on in the world or someone's perspective on something through social media or in your video feeds is increasing anxiety, frustration, anger, sadness, emotions in any direction. I have a feeling that this may be a vital piece of something we're missing. As I watch different trials and I watch different court cases. I find them very interesting. I find it interesting to see how patterns of engagement happen between people and forensics. If I could handle the gory parts of forensics, I would have been a forensic psychologist, but I cannot. So I stick with kind of more of the I don't want to say the mental part, but that's really not the best word to use. But it's intriguing to me to pay attention to how things play out and what is happening for the person, and then how things shift, how a person feels or experiences something. Maybe that's probably a vague way of putting it, but I just don't really know how to describe that area of interest. In any case, like many people in the world are watching a specific trial at this time, and I don't know that I'm going to mention it specifically because my point in sharing videos and having discussions is not so much about honing in on specific people, although I may need to mention it just for the sake of reference and to bring clarity into the conversation. But I want to have conversations about what's happening, hopefully with less of the emotional intensity if you've been following this particular trial. And if you are watching court news lately, you know about a trial that a lot of people are talking about and are bringing while the prosecution and the defense are all talking about one specific set of circumstances, and the online things I'm seeing out here outside of the court case is a lot of speculation that isn't corroborated by the evidence. Wow, I sound fancy like a law show. Anyway, it isn't corroborated by the evidence. The evidence isn't showing up to align with the point of view and the viewpoint and the belief set that is coming through the other posts that I'm seeing. And so when I'm watching this, it's alarming to me because it's similar to so much of what we see in the divisiveness, what in politics, in anything that is a hot topic issue that can spark a lot of internal emotion and passion. But the key thing here, and I want to cautious this because as a believer, a lot of times when we go to like, what does everybody need? We need more of Jesus. We need more of God. We do absolutely need Jesus. We need God, and we need the way that God works in our lives. My way of approaching how we engage in the world and engage with ourselves in relationship with God and other people in the world is to lean into ways of living and navigating our experiences so that we can experience more of God, not just telling people to have more of Jesus or pray more to have, that can actually be very counterproductive and harmful in some cases. So when I say this, please keep that in mind. But the word that keeps coming to mind over and over and over again is nuance. We are a world in need of nuance. And when I think of nuance and the need for us to have this in our conversations, in our interpretation of the things that we take in as information, whether it's video or things that we read, conversations that we're having, nuance is a place of allowing options that may not be super clear, that we may be wrong about, or we may be right about, or that may be altered by other circumstances. Nuance to me is this place of not living in the something that's called like the good or bad split. There's a component of mental health that includes the ability to think flexibly, to not live in a strict, rigid pattern of thinking. And when we split our thoughts into that person is all good, this policy is all good, or it is all bad, it fuels the opposite end. And so we can go back and forth in more and more layers of extreme, or to more and more extensive extreme of splitting what we think is all good or is all bad, that we have the perspective that it's all this, and that can actually fuel more anxiety inside of us and fuels more divisiveness between us and other people. And what would the enemy like us to do? He would like us to be completely alone, disconnected, and especially disconnected from God. Right in the very beginning, in the Garden of Eden, that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, where mankind, where Adam and Eve, when that moment happened, when they ate the fruit, they shifted. That fruit, that sense of I want to know what's right or wrong, what I'm going to be the determiner of what is good. I have the knowledge. I have it all to myself. I am the one making all those determinations. I'm not talking about making reasonable judgments in situations. This is a pattern of choosing to live from a sense of our source as being just who ourselves and our way of thinking, which is finite, which is never perfect, which does not know all the details and all the information and cannot handle knowing that much. And believe me, I'd like to know a lot of things, and my brain gets tired. Anybody else? So the more that we start to split good or bad, we can become very defensive with other people, more argumentative. That intensity of anger or shutdown of, never mind, I'm not going to speak up at all, is going to increase when there is this commitment to someone being, I'm right and you're wrong, and I'm going to prove myself right, or how dare you think this, because everything that you think, if you say one thing on one hot topic, the presumption is that that means you also believe this, you act this way, you behave this way. And therefore, if I don't agree with that, I am going to push against you, or I'm going to leave you and I'm not going to engage in conversation with you at all. And then on the flip side, we have in the Christian platforms, and what we're seeing with a lot of the church leaders and the spiritual manipulation that happens, we can see these leaders, people who are saying good seeming things, presenting themselves as good, and they have good talents and the ability to get those words out and to kind of command presence, to be charismatic and to seem humble. We can look to that and we can say, that is all good. I want all of that. And if they're all good and I can't compare myself to them, what happens? Do you think we may have more thoughts of how we're bad because we can't compete? But all of this that seems good is a presentation. Nuance, and that kind of an, I always think of it as an anchoring thing. It's something that I go back to as key, not necessarily values, but components to growing as the person God designed me to be, to being bold and also humble, receptive to changes and to information that I may get wrong, or I may misunderstand, or I may really think that I have it figured out. I do all the time. Think I've got lots of things figured out, and then find out later I missed some really important information, or I completely misunderstood, or in a communication with someone, they said something, but they really meant something else. And so that altered what I understood and how I was impacted by what I understood. So these relational patterns happen without nuance. The more we get into this place of, I'm right, and I have to be right to be okay, the more we're feeling anxiety, and we're also feeling harmful engagements online with other people. We are keeping ourselves from opportunities to see things that we really may need to see to get a more accurate picture about a person's situation or the outcome and how, like, so for example, in these court cases, the jury is tasked to look at specific pieces of evidence presented in the court and to take that information and apply it to specific laws. Now, that can be really, really frustrating. It is hard. It is hard to put together enough of the structure of rules and laws in any situation to give room for nuanced thinking and approaches, while also not, well, you need to have enough structure in there so that people aren't manipulating the system, or it's making room for more people to go free and to not be accountable for the consequences of their actions. For example, there are just so many areas that I think of in nuance when it comes to parenting, communication, relationships with other people. What happens when you do start to state an opinion or a thought? I hear from a lot of people who express that they would like to be able to have conversations with people who they may not agree with that can be respectful and honoring of the other person, conversations that give them the option to share their perspective without expecting that it's going to make a difference because I'm all right, you have to believe what I believe, the way I believe it, and have the specific outcome that I think you should have. And also allow that for the other person. Our tendency is going to be to go back to, I have the knowledge of good and evil. I'm the one that gets to decide who's right, who's wrong. And I see this pattern also play out of the more we lean into that, if we keep showing up and are applauded as the person who has it all right, we need to be extra cautious because we can become more rigid and firm in that we are always all right. And on the flip side, when I work with creators, I have this group called Inspire Hub. So I have two different member communities. One is called Growing You. It's for trauma-informed guidance and support in developing these, what I call core growth foundational concepts and learning things that are happening inside of us without the burden of just trying to fix ourselves, but actually engaging in exercises and information that can lead to new patterns and new ways of experiencing life for ourselves and with other people, developing who we are and how we show up in the world. And the other group is Inspire Hub. So working with content creators, writers, speakers, authors, podcasters, YouTubers. It's a very small group right now. I used to lead a bigger group for writers. So I'm trying to work on the foundation piece of it and would love to welcome new members. If you're interested, please let me know. But in that space, a lot of times what I've seen for many years is that someone will feel like God has given them an interest in something, a passion in something. Maybe they feel called to a specific topic or to do to write a book or to do a podcast, and then maybe they don't have the specifics all laid out just yet. And inevitably, what they wrestle with internally is thoughts about themselves. Can I really do this? Well, I can't show up the way another person does, so who would listen to me? Those critical voices, whether it comes from the enemy, whether it's patterns that have played out from past experiences we've had, that now tell us that we're all bad. And it just hones in a message internally, a shame position where I feel like I am all bad. And maybe I can say some good things and I could try to trick my brain and say, well, I know that God says I'm this and God says I'm that. But what I'm doing and how I'm experiencing things is deeply impacted by a core belief that keeps popping up, that keeps like grabbing onto the slightest tone of voice or engagement with another person, or even the mental thoughts of what could happen in a situation. If I put myself out there with content, they're going to reject me and I'm going to be all bad, because who wants to listen to me? This video is just brief. I actually have to run to something else. I wanted to push myself to just say, hey, I'm going to put myself out there again. The last 2 lives I tried to do, I had different tech issues. It is just a thing, and I want to get back into the practice of showing up online, particularly with video content. I would love to have these conversations because I think that a lot of people want to talk about what's happening with kids and adult kids and parents, and this dynamic that we're seeing play out where parents are, their kids are cutting off the parents, and what do you do in those circumstances? And there's a lot of nuance that needs to be part of those conversations, as well as what prompted me today, which is identifying patterns of spiritual manipulation, coercive control, power and abuse dynamics. And so in the court case that I'm talking about today, like I said, I may mention in the future, just right now, I don't want this to be about that specific case. But if you know, you know, and if you want to mention it, that's fine. But in this court case, the defense is everybody in the court case. There has been no indication outside of the prosecution, the defense, anybody that's been involved in this specific case that indicates anything outside the key points that are being made, whether this person is guilty and goes to jail, or this person is guilty not guilty, which carries a load. There's emotional load to the meaning of those 2 words, by reason of mental defect, or they did not have the ability to know right and wrong and to make their own choice in the moment that this happened. What's happening online is a lot of theories completely detracting from the points that are being made here, and actually, honestly, some of the concerns that I have with what's happening with the prosecution. But the focus is being diverted over here. And while there may be some points to explore, etc., there's some nuance in the conversation. Like I said, I may mention it later because I'm just deciding whether or not I really want to tackle the specifics of this, to go into what I see as the nuanced conversations that I think are important to have, because my heart is that we as a church, as part of the body of the church, are doing our own work and learning, leaning into a process with God that helps us develop, help us become who He's designed us to be, while operating in a world that is full of imperfections, that is restricted in our knowledge, restricted in our abilities, with other people who also have very different approaches, experiences, thoughts, beliefs, etc. If you'd like to hear on board these topics, if you think this is a topic worth exploring further, I would love to hear in the comments. And if you want to share specific topics that are of interest to you, I will consider that. And I will be, I'm hoping to try to schedule like at least maybe 1 live a week. I don't know when that'll be yet. It's been a long journey this last year, and I would really like to do that at some point during the week and just have these conversations online as a live video engagement. So let me know your thoughts, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.